right, Coach. I think today I'm feeling a little bit better.
I can tell, man. It's so refreshing to see you in good spirits.
I'm not as bad as I was before. It's almost 100%. I'll say I'm about 85% all the way back healthy. But, even on 85%, you got to make it do what it do, baby.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
For the love of the pod. How was your weekend, man?
Solid. Just staying busy. Had our last weekend of AU, and we went 2-1 that weekend.
For spring?
Yeah, just played good ball. The game we only lost by 3 against a pretty solid team. So proud of the guys for the way they competed at the end. But yeah, I mean, it was a nice weekend. We began nicer weather. It's been too hot out recently, but it's nice to finally have like summer weather, not like 50-degree weather in June.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I keep trying to tell you, I'm not a big fan of well, I'll say this. When I have to wear a uniform for work and move around, I hate summer. But if I'm just chilling in my backyard, just drinking some brews, then I love summertime.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? So it just depends on what I'm doing. But other than that, I'm glad you had a good weekend. I'm glad you finished off the spring AAU season strong, at least with a 2-1 record. Obviously, if people don't know how AAU normally works, over the weekend when you play these games, you typically have to go undefeated in order to get the medals and stuff like that. But you still just want to be able to at least walk away knowing that you had a good winning record for the weekend, if nothing else. What you don't want to do is lose all the games or walk away with a losing record, because then that's just a bad weekend. Yeah. So I'm glad you guys walked away with at least a 2-1 record. Would have been nice to see you walk in with some medals, though, this weekend.
Yeah, I had to go 3-0 for that one.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
We were right there.
It would have been nice to see you walk in with some medals, because then that lets you know how the weekend really, really turned out.
Right.
But all right, Coach, you ready to get into the show?
Let's get right into it.
All righty. You already know how it goes. It's the halftime give and go. I would tell you the rules, but you should know how it is already. But what are the rules? 30 seconds, and that's all you get to have your topic spoken about. All the rules must apply as always. Coach, are you ready?
Let's go.
All right on top. It's on me, Stefon Diggs, for the New England Patriots, right? So crazy to say. All I'm going to say about you, Stefon, is look, man, you're partying, you're having a good time, you're a grown man, you can do whatever you want. However, you are now part of the New England Patriots, and there are certain things that you have to carry yourself in a certain way. I will say this, be careful. Doesn't sound like they're going to let you go, but if you keep partying and doing the things that you do, you will find yourself looking for a new place to play football very, very fast, Stefon. But you are a great player. All right, moving on. Frank Ragnow for the Detroit Lions, their all-pro center. Look, it's very sad to see and hear that your body is now betraying you this early on in your career, but it's good to know that you are wise enough to recognize when you have to get out. And I am happy that you've had a great career. You've helped Detroit get themselves back on the mark and get themselves back on the map, and I'm pretty sure your teammates and your coaches appreciate everything you have done. So good luck to you in retirement, and hopefully you can be healthy for your family. All right, Coach. Moving on to the NBA, Tyrese Halliburton. What you got for him, Coach?
Yeah, this NBA Finals series is going to be really telling to the type of player he is.
Yes.
It's going to be a very tough series for him. He's going to have the best defensive team, trying to take him away every single night. It's going to be difficult, but I think he's going to find success in freeing up his other guys like Miles Turner, like Nembhard, like Nesmith. I think they all need to catch fire, and I think they're all capable of doing so, and I think Halliburton is going to be that offensive hub to link everybody together.
All right, moving back to the NFL, our good old Ben Johnson, head coach for the Chicago Bears. What you got to say about him right now, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, so far he's living up to all the expectations. He's saying all the right things in the press conferences. Bears reporters love him. He's giving very clear, direct answers. He's not beating around the bush. Players are feeling more accountable, more motivated, more pushed to be great. And that's what they've been asking for, right? And that's kind of the expectation that was brought in when Ben Johnson was signed on. So it's refreshing to see, but we both know this doesn't mean anything until actual football is played.
All right, and last but not least, staying on the NFL for you, Coach, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they lost their tight end for the season, and they still don't have a quarterback. What is going on in Pittsburgh, Coach?
It's a dumpster fire. I think they need to figure out really quickly if Aaron Rodgers is going to be their guy, because it's looking very rough. It's looking very rough. Especially losing their tight end in the way that they did in practices. It's not shaping up to be a great season for the Pittsburgh Steelers, alongside with the fact that TJ Watt is not happy about his contract extension conversations. So we'll see how that plays out. Maybe that's a trade that happens in the future.
Woo! All right, and last but not least on the halftime give and go, back to me. Let's talk about Caleb Williams, the quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Look, Caleb, you come under fire for statements that you may or may not have said. You've already done your PR backtracking and saying, well, some things have been taken out of context. And look, man, all I'm going to say is forget all of that. You better come out and ball. You want everybody to forgive you. You want everybody to get over what happened the first year of your rookie season. You want everybody to just realize how great you are. Come out and play ball this season. If you don't, guess what? All of those moments from those conversations, from those articles, and all of those things we were mad about, we will be back on your ass about. Do you understand that? So go out there and play good football, Caleb. That is all I have to say to you, young man. All right, Coach. That has been the halftime give and go. We want to remind everyone to follow you and I, Coach. We have good things going on. You just finished up your spring AAU season. You will be letting the people know about your summer tryouts that will be coming sometime soon, so that you can get the summer AAU season underway, and they can follow you and listen to you and hear about everything you're doing with 3 Point High at Coach_KD41. Again, if you want to find out what's going on with Coach and his AAU club 3 Point High and everything that he has going on, you can follow him at Coach_KD41. And for myself, I'm getting ready for the high school season. We're getting ready to start. Me and Coach are getting ready to start our Zoom conferences that we're going to have with some of the players that's returning, so we could just teach them some basketball one-on-one principles and just kind of get their IQ up a little bit more, so that come the high school season, there are some things that we just don't necessarily have to worry about coaching. And so you'll find me just kind of giving information about that, maybe even posting videos of some of the conversations we have with the guys over Zoom and different things like that. But you'll be able to find that from me at CoachM_GotIt, as well as any of my opinions and hot takes about anything that's going on in the sports world. So again, if you want to follow Coach Malcolm, that's CoachM_GotIt, and following Coach Conrad, that's Coach_KD41. All right, Coach, you ready to play our game?
Let's do it, man.
Are you ready to play our game?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're ready to play our game. Who's cooking and who should stay out the kitchen? Number one on who's cooking, I got to give him some love. Pascal Siakam, Eastern Conference Finals MVP Pascal Siakam. Look, I know that is not the sexiest thing to talk about Pascal Siakam. He's not your traditional superstar. He doesn't come off with your American swag and different things like that. And so it's not easy to identify him as somebody that can be a face of the league, a face of a team, a superstar in the NBA. But if you look at the way he plays, the fact that he's a champion already, the fact that he's a major contributor to an Indiana team that some people never saw going this far, the fact that he was one of the biggest acquisitions in trade history for the Indiana Pacers and is showing off and proving exactly why they pinpointed him and decided that he was the person that they wanted to come to Indiana and make that deal happen, and why they signed him so quickly in the offseason and didn't even let him get a chance to go out there and try to see what the market could do. It's all lining up and showing why, because he is actually a superstar player. That's exactly what he is. He elevates the team. He knows how to play within the system. He knows how to get his points without breaking anything down, without being too much of a ball dominant player. And he does all the little things that you need to win: rebounding, hustling, defending, getting tips, being out in transition, knowing where to be in help side defense, just doing all the right things as a basketball player. And he's been around some good players, from Kyle Lowry to Kawhi Leonard and different guys of that caliber. So I'm actually excited to see what he does yet again on the final stage, but this time obviously in a much more demanding role, instead of being sort of like the co-help to like a Kawhi Leonard or somebody like that. I'm interested to see if he'll be able to step into that mold of potentially actually being the guy that gets the job done for his team.
Yeah, absolutely. Pascal was kind of one of those guys that people wrote off for a little bit.
Yeah.
After they won that championship in Toronto, of course, his stock was very high. He was looking great during that series, and then Toronto started to get a little bit worse and worse after Kawhi left, and then Pascal wasn't necessarily playing his best ball either.
Yeah.
And I think, this trade to Indiana really kind of gave him that extra stimulant, the kind of to just accelerate the wheels again, kind of like some WD-40 on some rust. Take the rust off the wheels and keep going. And it's been refreshing to see. He's a great ball player, especially in that Indiana system where they could just play fast. Fits right into him. I mean, he's not necessarily a guy that's going to go rebound. Miles Turner could rebound. Somebody else could rebound. Quick outlet to Halliburton, look down the floor. Guess who's there? Siakam. You know what I mean? And he's just able to score in the low post, which I think is going to prove very effective against OKC. That's probably going to be a tough matchup for them. They'll probably have to stick Caruso on him at some moments, kind of how they did with Jokic, how they did with Anthony Edwards, just all those things. Caruso's going to have to be a big factor, but I think Pascal is a really tough guard. I think he's a tough matchup for Caruso, simply because of his multiple scoring capabilities. But yeah, shout out to Siakam. Again, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, definitely deserving of it. Some people thought Halliburton should have got it, but I think that's just because he got more media spotlight. Siakam was definitely the X factor in that series.
Yeah,
and here's my reason for saying that, and we'll move on real quick to the next guy after this. But because in games that Halliburton didn't show up, Siakam did, and he kept them in those games.
So I do believe Halliburton earned the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. I do understand why they gave it to Siakam, but I do think Tyrese earned it just as much as Siakam, because there were a lot of those games where the impact in what Tyrese did was greater than the impact in what Siakam did. Siakam was consistent, but his impact on his consistency wasn't necessarily why the Pacers were winning. Now, I say that last game in Game 6, where Halliburton wasn't necessarily like scoring like crazy, he still had like 23 points and 13 assists. Siakam was obviously more impactful in the way that he was scoring in that particular game of Game 6. But throughout the course of the series, the things that Tyrese Halliburton was doing were like stamp moments in that series. So I get it. There's reward and consistency. So I'm happy about that, because you want that to be the narrative for any young player that's watching. There is reward and consistency. You have to be somebody that is counted on and depended upon night in and night out. But I think the argument for Tyrese is a solid one, but I'm not mad at either
I
one.
agree with. I think it's a solid one too. I just think Pascal definitely deserved it, but Halliburton earned it.
But
as well.
stand on the Indiana Pacers and giving love to someone else on their roster who had an amazing series, Andrew Nembhard. Look, we've talked about your teammate Aaron Nesmith. We've talked about Pascal. Obviously, we've talked about Mr. Overrated, as they claim, and Tyrese Halliburton. But we want to show you a little bit of love, Andrew, because you had a wonderful series. And when Nesmith went down with his ankle injury a little bit, and you had to step in and become the leading guard defending Jalen Brunson, what a job you did. Like, you didn't back down. You stepped right into that moment. Obviously, and really the biggest moment of that series, because honestly, I'm going to be honest, if you guys lost game 6 and it went to a game 7 in New York, whether you guys played good or not, I'm just going to say really quickly that a New York game 7 in New York would have definitely promoted an opportunity to get New York to the finals. I'm just going to say it that way. I'm not saying that the referees would have done anything. I'm not saying that the NBA would have tried to do anything. But I'm just going to say a game 7 in New York would have made it a little difficult for the Indiana Pacers to end up being the Eastern Conference champions. So the fact that you stood tall, 10 toes down against Jalen Brunson game 6, I think he walked away with 5 steals that game, 4 to 5 steals, something like that. Obviously knocked down your open threes. It's something about the fact that Indiana has so many guys that can contribute to both sides of the basketball that makes them so dangerous. Like, they don't just have like a defensive specialist or a guy that can just get high from the three-point line. It's like, no, every single guy that isn't quote-unquote one of their main, I guess, options or superstars, they're all guys that play great defense and can knock down open shots time and time and time again. Every last one of them. They don't have guys that's just good at this and good at that. No, they're playing both sides of the basketball, and that makes Indiana dangerous. So I want to give love to Andrew Nembhard for a hell of a game 6, and what I think was a coming out party for just how much of a big role he is going to play in this next series. Your thoughts, Coach?
No, absolutely. I mean, he balled out along with Neesmith, of course. Can't forget to mention him. But I think Nembhard was also a guy that kind of flew under the radar this series when it definitely didn't deserve to be that way. In times when Neesmith was out of the game, Nembhard was sticking Brunson. Nembhard stepped up and made big shots in big moments as well.
Yes.
When they were keying in on Halliburton. He's just a winning basketball player, and like that's the type of stuff you want as a coach when you're coaching teams. Is like a guy that's gonna step into any role no matter what. He's gonna hit the shots when he needs to hit them.
Yes.
He's gonna guard the best guy willingly, and he's a great ball player. I love watching him play night in and night out. It was a treat to watch, and I can't wait to see what scheme they have ready for Shea. I think it's gonna be a really interesting one. I think it's gonna be a really tough matchup for them to stick Shea. Because we know how great Shea is at scoring the basketball and facilitating for others. I think if they could make Shea play off of the catch and make Shea be a playmaker, that's their best way of winning this series.
Come on, Coach. You're giving too much away too early. We gonna get there. We gonna get there. Come on, man. Don't give them too much sauce. Give them too much sauce too early. They don't want to stay for the food. I gotta give credit to Nembhard, man. All right. Don't give it away too much. Give it too much sauce too early.
Well, let's just get to my favorite part.
All right, your favorite part of the game.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about the guys who need to stay out the kitchen. Number 1 on who needs to get out the kitchen. I'm sorry to do this, and it kind of hurts me, Corazon. It hurts me, Corazon, to do this. Anthony Edwards, man. Look, so I wasn't on a bandwagon of saying like he was going to be the new face of the NBA. I wasn't one of those people who was ready to crown him as the next guy coming up and all this other stuff. I still felt like he had things to prove. I do believe that he is on the trajectory of becoming that, but I think people were ready to give that crown to him way too fast. What I am going to say about Anthony Edwards is this series should have taught him that there is an additional level and layer to his game that he has to explore, that he has to work on, and that his greatest challenge now is going to be two things is his greatest challenge. Having the conditioning to be just as effective on defense as he is on offense. And secondly, developing a mid-post to low-post backup game in the mid-range so that when teams like OKC create a defensive scheme centered around you getting the ball from the wing or the top of the key, where they can essentially switch every single pick and roll, or load up and trap you coming off the pick and roll, or just load up and help defense to keep you from driving. That situation is what caused Minnesota to lose that series, because it was very easy for OKC to load up and defend him because of his lack of ability to be a threat on the mid to low post. The thing about the series that helped Denver was that Jokic was somebody that they had to concern themselves with on the low post and at the mid post, which meant that the defense had to shrink to him instead of just being able to just load up and wait for Jokic to make a move. They actually had to come to Jokic, which allowed him to be able to swing the ball out and Denver to get swing actions for open drives and open lanes and even just catch and shoot opportunities. Against Minnesota, there wasn't really too much shrinking of the floor and shrinking of the defense to have to come to Anthony at a certain spot so that he could just get the ball out and guys could have catch and shoot opportunities. They were simply able to just load up, and the only hard part about the way that they were playing their defense really was just the rotation to guys when he let the ball go. Just making sure that after you get in help and you stop him from driving, guys knew how to rotate to make sure they can contest the open shots. That was really the only hard part about how they had to play their defense, was the rotation to get out to shooters. Against Jokic, it was, okay, now we have to double. Now somebody has to come down. We also hedging. We're also trying to trap. Then we also got to rotate, and that's what made that series a lot more tougher than it did for Minnesota. So I think if Anthony wants to get to that next level, this series should have taught him to condition himself to be a better defender, and secondly, to develop a mid-post to low-post game so that he can be more of a threat in the half court outside of being a guy that just gets the ball on the wing or at the top of the key waiting for a pick and coming off that and trying to just drive straight to the basket, because OKC put out a blueprint that says if this is his game and this is how it's going to stay, this is how you essentially make him null and void. Now, somebody could also argue, just give him better teammates that can knock down some shots and all that shit goes away. So I hear that argument as well. But we'll get to that later on when we talk about options that Minnesota, quote unquote, is potentially exploring. But your thoughts on Anthony Edwards right now, Coach?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the mid to low post game, because that's something I definitely agree with you on. That's something we brought up towards the tail end of that series that Anthony Edwards needs to start doing, but I straight up said he just wasn't capable of it. You know, the mid-range shot is his least effective shot, his least consistent one. That's definitely an area of concern and an area he needs to improve upon this offseason if he wants to go from good to great. I'm not saying he ain't great, but I'm just saying to show the layers of improvements and make that next step. That's what he needs to do, because like you said, I mean, if you're able to get guys to come to you, the floor opens up so much more, and it makes your teammates' lives a whole lot easier. And him just being able to square up from the mid to low post, shoot it right over, like that's something that Carmelo Anthony was able to do back in his heyday, and that's why he was so effective as well. Not only could he hit crazy tough shots, but guess what? It opened up a lot of guys to just knock down open shots for guys to cut to the basket. Just makes the offense a lot more smoother and free flowing when you got a guy that could just really catch in that mid to low post and go to work. Which if Anthony Edwards could do that, that's a scary sight to see, because right now, in my opinion, he's only a 2-level scorer. He's going to need that to become a 3-level scorer.
Yeah, I would say, I agree with you. He's obviously effective getting to the basket, right? He's Ant-Man. That's what makes him Ant-Man, is that he can jump over most people and that he can finish well around the basket. And secondly, he has worked on his three-point shot. But I agree. Obviously, you know, that's where he finds his fallacy. But I'll ask you this just really quickly. If you're Minnesota, are you more concerned with trying to get Anthony Edwards to learn the mid-range game and get better at that? Or are you more concerned about saying let's find players or let's do what we can to get guys that can just knock down these shots when he get double teamed, so that way if they can just knock down the shots more consistently and get that done, now the defense can't play that way and Ant-Man can just get back to doing what he does, which is drive and shoot the three.
I mean, to be quite honest with you, I feel like if that was the area of concern, then they wouldn't have traded away Cat in the first place. You know, like when they traded away Cat, he was the best shooting big man in the league. You know,
Fair point.
one could argue he still is, but he just had the injury on his hand. So I think that was honestly a dumb move. Like, yeah, they got some solid pieces back.
There's some rotational guys.
That's what I mean. But like, you lost a big piece of your offense in Karl Anthony Towns. Like, we saw what he was able to do in New York. Of course, the defense was in question, but that's why you had Rudy Gobert on the floor as well. Which Anthony Edwards looked a lot, in my opinion. Of course, this season during the regular season, you know, he led the league in 3-pointers made and all this other shit, but I feel like he looked a lot better last season as an efficient basketball player.
With Cat.
Cat.
Next to him.
And I think the concern needs to be for him to develop the mid to low post, because I mean, if you just give him, who else are you going to give him, you know, that could come in and make that same impact that Cat did in Cat's aspect, like Cat's type of
I mean, I have a
style.
guy there's a guy that can come in that he's really fond of, and I don't know. I mean, I want to I want to save it for another episode when we get into talking about Minnesota a little bit more, but I think you know exactly, and I'm pretty sure many people know exactly who we're like lightly referring to. But let's move on to the next guy that should also stay out the kitchen. And there's so much I want to say. I'm gonna try to be nice about it. But Jalen Brunson of the New York Knicks. Look, man, I don't know if New York Knicks fans are ready to have this conversation yet, but I'm going to say it first. There might be a world where you guys will probably be better off without Jalen Brunson being on your team. There might be a world where you might sit back and reflect on this series and realize that the style and play that Jalen Brunson has is the reason why you guys had no chance in the series. There might be a world where you look back and say that Jalen Brunson is the reason why the Knicks won't ever get to the NBA Finals if he is continuing to be as ball dominant as he is, and simultaneously being that much of a defensive liability, not due to the fact that he's not giving effort, but just due to his size. Just want to make sure I say that. It's not because he's not giving effort. It's just literally due to the fact that he's barely over 6 feet. So with that being said, I don't think New York fans are willing to admit that just yet. But I'm here to tell you today, right now, in my opinion, Jalen Brunson is the Achilles heel to the New York Knicks and their success, as long as you are relying upon him to play as if he is the short, light-skinned black version of Luka Doncic. Because that's how he plays. He's just as ball dominant, plays literally the same way, gets to the basket or three-point line. A defensive liability, except with Luka, is literally just no effort. And Jalen Brunson is just too small. If that's what you're going to have leading the way and being the guy that's having the basketball all the time, this is always going to be the result of the New York Knicks. And I'm sorry to say it.
Damn.
And I'm sorry to say it. I don't think Jalen Brunson can be your 30-point per game leading scorer and also dominating the ball 30% to 40% of the time, and you think you're going to have a NBA championship caliber team. It's not going to happen. You're going to have a good team. It's going to be a good team. You're going to beat some teams that you shouldn't beat, like Boston. But when you run up against a team that is well orchestrated, well coached, has guys that's willing to defend and do all the things that's possible, like Indiana, you're going to lose every single time. This team has to remodel itself and build around Cat and learn how to pass the ball around so that guys like OG Anunoby can be more a part of the offense, as well as Mikal Bridges. Jalen Brunson is going to have to learn how to play off the ball and not be a ball-dominant guard. If he fails to do that, New York should package Jalen Brunson right now, this offseason, and find out what they can get with Jalen Brunson on the open market with whatever potential pieces added into that. I don't know what that gets them, but they should consider it if they don't think that Jalen Brunson can change his style of play. So, just want to get your thoughts on that, Coach.
Honestly, I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree.
I'm glad you do. That makes for good conversation.
Yeah, I think Jalen Brunson, of course, I'm sure you believe this, is a good player.
Yes.
Yes. I believe the way he impacts the game is very immense, is very influential, is very hard to guard. Now, of course, you could point to the Indiana series and say, oh, well, look what he did this series. He didn't do that much. For me, as a coach watching that series, love Thibs. Always love Thibs. He didn't coach his best series as far as getting his best guy open.
Ooh.
Because here's my thing. You look at teams, look at any other team both of the teams that are left, right?
Yes.
You look at Indiana, you look at OKC. The way they were able to get their guys into positions to succeed, I think, was the main difference in those series. Like, the way they were able to get Halliburton coming off of a screen and just having open floor, I think was a big part of him finding success. I think what they were able to do with Shea, with either getting a really terrible mismatch, right? Either them switching on to Rudy Gobert or somebody else, right? Shea just going to the basket and having the space to do so. Jalen Brunson didn't have that. And I think that was alarming to me watching those games, is that I just didn't see enough of an effort or a good enough effort to get Jalen Brunson open and get him looks going to the basket, get him looks coming off of a double pin down screen and looking for a shot. There was none of that. It was really Jalen Brunson getting face guarded for the majority of the series, and he had to deal with it, and he had to come off of DHOs. And that was all about Thibs' offense was, in my opinion. That's all I saw happening for Jalen Brunson.
All right. Once again, you're giving too much sauce, and you get ahead of yourself.
Well, yeah, I know. We're going to get into Thibs later, but I just wanted to say, yes, I agree that Jalen Brunson needs to be less ball dominant in order for him to, or in order for New York to reach that next level, but I don't necessarily view this needing him being needed to be traded and all this other stuff. I don't see that. I just think the team needs a different offensive format in order to work well with one another, because I don't think everybody was being played to their strengths. I think Mikal Bridges should have been utilized a lot more. Okay. And things of that nature. But we'll get into that later.
We'll get into that.
We'll get into that later.
All right. That's been our game of who's cooking and who should stay out the kitchen. We want to remind all of you to follow and subscribe to our YouTube at the Halftime Pod. We enjoy all the comments. We enjoy the fact that everyone is liking and following our reels, that you guys are watching those. We see a lot of the views going up on all of those things, but the one thing we still need you guys to do is hit that notification bell and subscribe to the channel, so that way you know when everything is dropping, any new thing that's coming, you have an opportunity to know ahead of time, okay? So we want you to follow and subscribe to our YouTube at the Halftime Pod. We see you're rocking with the Reels. We see you're rocking with our YouTube Shorts. So we know that you like what you're seeing. Just got to go that extra little mile. Just the extra little thing that you just got to do is just click that button, click that notification bell to make sure you're subscribed to our channel, so that way we can continue to give you the content that you have grown to love, because we are the best sports coverage on all digital platforms. All right, Coach, are you ready?
Let's do it, man.
All right. We are ready for the Halftime Report. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think this first one will probably be our shortest topic. We probably won't spend too much time on this one because, it's just good news to talk about.
It's a little rumor.
It's a little rumor. But it's nothing to get too crazy about. But the Giannis sweepstakes is not going to go anywhere for the entire summer. I just want everybody to know that. Until this actually goes down, until he's actually traded or not, because it's not a guarantee. But until there is information that says that he'll either be staying with the Milwaukee Bucks or he'll be going somewhere else, or that trade is officially done, the Giannis sweepstakes will be the talk of the summer. And as of now, we've gone from hearing information that says Giannis just wants to be in a state with no tax to Steph Curry is really awesome. He's one of the greatest players in the NBA and one of the greatest players of all time. To now, Giannis is linked to being with the Toronto Raptors. I mean, you go from no state tax to wanting to play in a place where you're going to get taxed twice.
Yeah.
You're going to get taxed because you play in Canada. And then when you cross over to the U.S., you got to pay tax to play in the U.S. as a player as well. So I'm not sure what's happening here. I don't know if you want to go from a situation of paying no state tax to being taxed twice for being a player that plays in Canada. So I'm a little thrown off with this whole Giannis to the Raptors thing. Now, I will say the Raptors have cap space and they have some draft capital and they have some potential, I guess, players that could be intriguing enough to the Milwaukee Bucks to try to make a deal like that happen. I'm just not so sure and sold on the idea that Giannis, as they express, there's mutual interest in him wanting to go to the Toronto Raptors. I'm not convinced that that is true. But again, this is the Giannis sweepstakes, so every week we're going to hear something about Giannis and something new. But what are your thoughts on this new report that has come out that says that there is a mutual interest and there's links between Giannis and the Toronto Raptors?
Yeah, I think it's a whole bunch of hoopla. I don't think Giannis is interested in this at all. I just think he's throwing his name in every possible, bucket that he can, like it's a, charity raffle at an event. I think he's just looking to generate interest. I think he's just bored. I think he's just saying stuff to say it and then see how people react to it. If I'm going to give a logical take on this, I think he wants to go somewhere where he's going to win. It just makes sense. I think that's the only reason why he would want to leave Milwaukee is to go to a franchise that's going to present him a better opportunity of winning. Maybe that is a bigger market where, he would also have more national attention and all this stuff, more than he already has in Milwaukee. I think he would want to go somewhere where he could win. I mean, maybe that is Houston, right? Maybe that's San Antonio. Maybe that's a different franchise. I don't know, but I definitely don't think that franchise is Toronto. I think Toronto, though, if you're Milwaukee, could give you some good capital and some good value back. Maybe that is an R.J. Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and multiple first-round picks. Maybe that's the package, and maybe that's something Milwaukee's comfortable with.
It'll be a little bit more than that because I don't think R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley make enough money to make that deal.
Right, so, whatever the contract situation was like would have to add up. But, you know what I'm saying. I just think Toronto offers enough value to be able to trade for Giannis. Is that somewhere where Giannis actually wants to go? I don't think so.
I would just be a little interested in the idea. If I'm Toronto, I don't know if I necessarily want Giannis. Only because of the fact that I have yet to see what this team can look like once you have Emmanuel Quickley, once you have RJ Barrett healthy, once you have Brandon Ingram healthy, who they also traded for, right? You got Poto still there. Like, they have yet to even see what this team healthy can even look like.
Yeah, that's very true.
You know what I mean? Like, if I'm Toronto, I just would be like, okay, a Giannis trade. You can almost argue that a Giannis trade is almost always on the table. There's always going to be a chance to call Milwaukee and say, what would it take to get Giannis? I believe that's always going to be there. Because if I'm Milwaukee, Giannis is already showing signs of like discontent. He's already showing signs of like, well, when his contract is up, he'll probably leave or whatever. Like, unless Milwaukee goes on like a 4-year window run of 2 championships within 4 years and 4 finals appearances or something like that. Anything short of something like that, you can pretty much bank on the fact that Giannis will be looking elsewhere because he'll be trying to, get to a place that can give him a better chance to win. So if I'm Milwaukee, I'm already planning for the idea of that we need to consistently be on the phones trying to figure out who's interested in giving us what we feel will be adequate for a Giannis acquisition. So if I'm Toronto, I'm just looking at it from a standpoint of like, okay, cool. We know that Milwaukee sees some of the things that we have as potential assets that they deem could be suffice to some capacity for a Giannis, trade to happen. And if I'm Toronto, I keep that in the back of my mind and I wait to see exactly what can happen with our team healthy and all these young guys playing and see what that looks like first. So do I believe there's merit? To some capacity, yes. I have to believe there's some type of merit to this, obviously. But do I think it's a big like mutual interest as they're trying to express that Giannis is interested in Toronto? Absolutely not. Yeah. So that's my take on that. Anything else you want to add on that one?
No. I'm ready to move on to another trade rumor.
You ready to move on to another trade rumor?
Let's go, man.
All right, let's move on to the next topic of the halftime report, which is the Chicago Bulls supposedly being linked to Jonathan Kuminga. Now, I'm just gonna say this. It's not that I don't want Jonathan Kuminga.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know what we're gonna do with him. I just don't know, like, what have the Chicago Bulls shown that tells you that they know what to do with anything like a talent like Jonathan Kuminga? Somebody that's as dynamic, somebody that needs the basketball to be effective, right? We have decided that the only person that we want to have the ball in their hands for the most part on a continuous basis is our pseudo point guard. That is the way that Billy Donovan has designed his offense. That everybody outside of the point guard needs to be guys that move without the basketball, catch and shoot, set screens, and do things like that. And that the point guard is the one who will be the most dominant because they need to be making the proper decisions in transition and in the half court. That is how Billy Donovan runs his system. The ball dominant is the point guard, and that's not necessarily the most your scoring guard, right? He doesn't really want the point guard to be the leading scorer. He wants them to be the one that facilitates and play makes. That's idealistically the ideal point guard that Billy Donovan wants and the ideal offensive system. Jonathan Kuminga is most effective with the basketball.
Mm-hmm.
That's really where he makes his money, with the ball in his hands. So if you get a Jonathan Kuminga, what are you doing with a Kobe White? What are you doing with a Josh Giddey? You essentially put Kobe in a situation where he is yet again having to share somewhat of the scoring load, having to share somewhat of the possessions. competing with another guy. I won't say for playing time, but for on the floor, competing with a guy that's going to need the ball just as much as he does, because Kobe needs the ball to be as effective. Now, he can play off the ball a little bit, catch and shoot and stuff like that, but Kobe is most effective with the ball too. Then with Giddey, if Giddey is controlling the ball all the time, then how effective is Kuminga going to be? Right? If Giddey is the one still controlling everything, is Giddey going to be willing to make sure that Kuminga is getting fed and Kobe is getting fed? Like, how much do you believe in Giddey's ability to make sure everybody around is getting everything that they need to be effective? Maybe you believe in Giddey that much that you make that deal happen. The second part of this that makes no sense to me is, why in the world would Golden State trade Jonathan Kuminga for Nikola Vucevic when they can literally just wait until the Bulls have no choice but to either buy him out or accept 2 second-round picks?
Yeah, right. I also don't think it necessarily makes sense simply because we had the emergence of Quinton Post this year. Like, I think if there was any time for the Warriors to trade for Vucevic, it was
at the deadline last year.
Because we didn't see Quinton Post that much until after the deadline.
Yes.
And we've seen he's a good enough he's an excellent 3-point shooter at that for the big man position. He's 7 foot, he's tall, he's long, and he fits into that system really well. I think it'd be tough for them to now try to work in Vucevic and fit within that.
I think Vucevic will be a easy natural fit.
I'm saying if they still want Quinton Post to get some bump, you know what I mean? Like,
it would just all depends on how they. I think they view Quinton Post highly. Let me say this, but I think if they're just thinking about like how ready is he to contribute to them winning a championship right now in this short window that they have to maximize with Steph and Jimmy and Dre, then I could see them being like, we know Nikola Vucevic can give us what we need.
Yeah,
and he can teach Quinton Post everything that we want him to learn about how to be an effective double-double machine night in and night out for the rest of his career.
Yeah.
And that gives Quinton Post that veteran that he can learn from. It's not necessarily the thing about the Golden State Warriors being interested in Nikola Vucevic that's getting me. It's why they would trade Jonathan Kuminga for Nikola Vucevic. That makes no sense to me. I'm not giving up an asset like Jonathan Kuminga if I'm the Golden State Warriors just to get Nikola Vucevic.
Well, I'm sure a first or second round pick would have to be thrown in as well.
Of course. Now, if you're saying that we walk away with Nikola Vucevic and Lonzo Ball,
yeah, I don't.
With a pick for Jonathan Kuminga, now if I'm Golden State, I look at that and go, well, if we're out on the Giannis sweepstakes, but we can walk away with a veteran point guard who has shown to be recovered from his injury, and a obviously veteran proven double-double machine in Nikola Vucevic, and we still end up getting the first-round pick from the Chicago Bulls, who probably will still be a terrible team, and all we had to trade was Jonathan Kuminga, maybe then in a sign-and trade.
Well, of course that would make sense for Golden State, but at that point, is it worth it for the Bulls to do that? Having to give up a first-round pick again, you know what I mean? Like, we go into this conversation again.
But that would be you telling us that Jonathan Kuminga is the guy that you think is going to carry the franchise to that next level.
I guess that's it. If the front office views them that way, that's what they're going to do. You know what I mean? But do I necessarily believe that? I'm not too sure. I don't know. I don't think he's necessarily going to be the guy. I think he could be a guy.
Yes,
but I don't think he's the guy. And I'm scared that the Bulls are going to think he's the guy and trade for the guy value. And it's a scary situation we're in right now. And would not be surprised if the Bulls made another lackluster, brain dead, brainwashed, unreasonable decision.
Yeah. But enough of them. We hope that this doesn't happen as Bulls fans. If we get Jonathan Kuminga, we hope it happens in a way that doesn't just steer the Bulls in a wrong direction. But for Golden State fans, I'm sure they're looking at this and saying, if the Bulls are that dumb, hey, how about it?
Of course.
All right. Let's move on to the last topic of the halftime report. And this one is near and dear to my heart because I just don't understand the stupidity of this franchise. But it is the New York Knicks. And so they are always going to nick things up. And that is the breaking news that happened yesterday, which is that they have fired their head coach, former Bulls head coach, former Minnesota Timberwolves head coach, Tom Thibodeau, has been released of his head coaching duties for the New York Knicks after getting them to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years. Progressively, he has gotten this team back to the playoffs after they were a terrible franchise and had no direction. He's gotten them back into the right spot, right into the spotlight yet again. The Knicks are back on top. Theoretically, they're back in the eye of the NBA, and back into the eye of sports luster. And just in Knick fashion, because they overblew their semi-round win against Boston, and they looked at that and said, we must be playoff finals bound. We're going to the finals because you beat Boston. You let a loss to the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals cause you to make a decision that, to me, feels super impulsive. Newsflash for New York Knicks fans. Just because you beat Boston, who lost Jason Tatum, by the way, and also had a coach who just refused to teach his guys and tell his guys that, hey, the three-point shot isn't working, let's just drive to the basket and put pressure on the rim, because they had complete idiocracy at their head coach position with Boston. You beat a team like that, and because you beat the defending champs, you just assume that the Indiana Pacers were going to be a cakewalk, because when you look on paper, you should have the better players, right? Jalen Brunson should be a greater star than Tyrese Halliburton. OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam should kind of, wash each other. Like, one is going to do this and one is going to do that, so they should kind of even each other out. And Cat should be better than Miles Turner, right? So on paper, you just assume that you have the better guys, the better players, and better roster, so you should beat the Indiana Pacers. Newsflash, the Indiana Pacers are just a great team. They're a great team. So you were going to have a hard time beating them anyway. Not to mention, the same roster for the New York Knicks had trouble all season beating some of the best teams on both sides of the of conferences in the NBA. They had a hard time beating the top teams in the East as well as beating the top teams in the West. And Indiana was amongst the top teams in the East. So it's like, to be honest, the New York Knicks, they kind of overachieved. Thibs kind of maximized to some capacity what the New York Knicks really shouldn't have been able to do. They really shouldn't have beat Boston if Boston would have stayed healthy. To get to the Eastern Conference Finals for this season really should be the magnum opus for the New York Knicks season this year. But because they beat Boston and because they had this delusional expectation of feeling like Indiana was supposed to be beaten by them because it's the Indiana Pacers and they aren't that good, or whatever the case may be, whatever thoughts that they had, losing to Indiana has cost Tom Thibodeau his job from an impulsive franchise who feels like they listen to their fan base more than they actually use their hopeful basketball acumen that they should have in the front office and in the building. Your thoughts? Because I have more, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
Yeah, I believe it was a very impulsive decision. I think this is a franchise that's very desperate, and they're going to make very desperate moves. Is this a move that should have been made? In my opinion, no. I love Coach Thibodeau. I think he's a great mind in the game of basketball. I think he knows how to maximize certain players, but I do also think that he struggles sometimes with maximizing other players. Like, I think there is sometimes there is a very star-heavy look from Thibs, and he doesn't necessarily maximize his role players. And I think that maybe could have been the detriment to New York's ultimate failure in this conference final. We know he likes to play players for 44 minutes a game during the regular season. I don't think that's sustainable. I think he's never going to change that, though. That's just who he is, right? That's how they identify him. And I mean, is that necessarily bad? I mean, one could argue no. I mean, you're winning games, right? But at what cost? Like, when you do get to the conference finals, which Tibbs has made before with the Bulls, right? I mean, how much stamina, how many miles does the team have left after having to play that many minutes throughout the whole season? I mean, if you look at analytics, I think it shows. I think it shows it's very hard to sustain that level of play. Though I do think New York did do a pretty fair job at being able to sustain their play, even though they've played many thousands of minutes, hundreds of minutes throughout the season. I think it's crazy, though. Like, I'm going to go back to your point. I think it's crazy, though, to fire a coach that in 5 seasons made the playoffs 4 times, had consecutive 50-win seasons for the first time since the 1990s for the Knicks. It's crazy to make that type of move, and was not the move they should have made at all. Who do I think they're going to replace him with? I think there's one name that only comes to mind. It's going to be Mike Malone. I think Mike Malone's going to come into that franchise. They're going to see what he can do. I don't necessarily think it's going to be for the better. I don't think he necessarily ended things off the best in Denver, and I think Denver was probably a better roster than this New York roster. But this is sad for Thibs. I think this is another case of Thibs just getting overlooked. I think this is another case of Thibs just the media and the fandom that the NBA has gotten the best of the front office, and it's preposterous. It's preposterous that the guy has gotten fired once again because he doesn't deserve it.
Look, I know the narrative on Thibs playing guys a lot of minutes is what people like to drive home about their what they can feel is like the sour grapes when it comes down to Thibs. All I'm going to say is this. These are world-class athletes. In any other space, in any other occupation, if you get paid a lot of money, guess what you're required to do? A lot of work. That's just how it goes, right? If you get paid a lot, there is a lot that's demanded upon you in every other aspect of the world. And we are talking about grown men who are playing a child's game. And I don't want to sound like the grumpy old man who doesn't look at this and say, well, it's a play, because I am about the players. But what bothers me the most is we are in a professional, this is a professional league, and we are in a time as spectators where we're watching guys who don't even play 82 games a year. They don't play 82 games a year. Some of them playing 65. Some of them playing 70. Some of them are playing less than that, either due to load management or they got a Nick injury here, Nick injury there, and that's why I play. I come from an era of watching Kobe Bryant, who played every game just about as much as he could, messed up shoulder, messed up knee, messed up rib, broken finger, 2 broken fingers, broken thumb, black eye, whatever, and still played and hooped and didn't complain. Was always in game-ready shape and was always ready to play whatever minutes was required to win championships. These are world-class athletes who have access to the greatest dietitians, greatest nutritionists, massage therapy, all type of stuff going on. Freeze therapy, the heat therapy, whatever kind of therapy you want to talk about, they got it. And they don't even practice during season. They don't even play basketball. The only basketball they play is games during the season. We're talking about eras before who would actually have real basketball practice in between games, playing more basketball, and these guys still played 82 games. Karl Malone never missed games. Minutes after minutes, overtimes after overtimes for years of their career. And these dudes who don't even barely play basketball throughout the course of the season outside of the games, having all the access to the world's greatest science and medicine, you can't get yourself ready to potentially play 44 minutes a game? And you're not even playing all 82? These dudes are the reason why OG Anunoby, who just gives effort on defense, is getting paid almost $40 million. Because he's just willing to play defense and can knock down an open 3. That's how lazy these bums are in the NBA now. We got to sit around and talk about and support guys who play both sides of the basketball as if Offense and defense just isn't part of the game. We're sitting around giving guys claps and credit because they're willing to do both sides.
I think we got one culprit to point to for that.
Who are you going to blame?
LeBron.
Well, I do believe it's LeBron.
Yeah.
We can have that conversation later.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But what I'm just like, I hate this. I hate this so much. This whole drive, he's running them into the ground. 6 New York Knicks players make the most money on that roster. That's Karl Anthony Towns at 50-some million. OG Anunoby at $39 million, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, and Mitchell Robinson. Guess who played most of the minutes? Every last one of those guys who make the most money, as they should. You guys make the money. You guys should be the ones taking me home. Y'all should be the one winning the championship. Why are you asking me as a coach to depend on Deuce McBride to come out here and make some magic happen when you, Jalen Brunson, is getting paid $30-some million? Why am I trying to figure out what backup center to go get to help out Mitchell Robinson and he getting paid $18 million? You guys are the ones making the money. Go out there and play. Go hoop. Get yourself in shape. Do we all? Hey, everybody, raise your hand. How many minutes are in a basketball game? 48 minutes. So all of you who are starters should be prepared to play them. Now, you can argue and say, well, they're human. They're also supposed to be conditioning themselves for the job that they're at and for the circumstances in which they're in. The same way you would tell a soldier, they're human too, but they got to prepare themselves for any moment that can happen. No sleep. No food, potentially. Freezing conditions. Hot conditions. They still got to go out there and get the job done. No pity on that. So go out there and condition your body during the summer for whatever it is that's going to take you to be the best version of the basketball player you need to be so that you can play both sides of the basketball, Karl Anthony Towns. Why am I sitting here as a coach, you getting paid $53 million, and I got to decide whether or not I need to take you out the game because you a defensive liability? But it's my fault as a coach. I'm supposed to make up a scheme for your lack of effort on defense, but you getting paid $53 million, but you ain't got no problem coming down shooting a half-court three with 5 minutes in the fourth quarter to go, and we down 2 points, and you think you Steph Curry? But no, let's not talk about that. Let's not scream about that because occasionally he'll make one and we go, ooh, ah. But I got to get fired because you play no defense. I got to get fired because this guy is 6 feet tall, getting paid $20-some million and is a defensive liability. But if I take him out for McBride in the fourth quarter of a game and we lose that game, the first thing y'all going to say is, why wasn't Jalen in the game? And then if I say, well, analytics says he played 37 minutes, so we should give him a break because, we don't want to overwork him. And y'all keep saying I run players into the ground, so I'm trying not to be that same Tom Thibodeau. Well, Thibs, we want to win the game. The best player should be on the floor. Bye. Because when I put the best players on the floor and make them play, y'all got a problem with that. If I take them out and we lose, y'all gonna have a problem with that. If I try to scheme for a guy that plays no defense and we lose because he on the floor and playing no defense, y'all gonna have a problem with that. But if I bring Mitchell Robinson in and he can't shoot a jump shot to save his life or a free throw, then you're gonna have a problem with that. Give me some players that know how to play both sides of the basketball. How about that? How about you do that? Stop giving me guys that play no defense and want to shoot threes 7 feet tall from the half-court line. Stop giving me another center that can't shoot a free throw to save his life and don't do nothing on offense, but the only thing he can do on defense is foul and rebound. Stop giving me a guy that only hustles and he's 6'7" and he rebounds and does everything, but his scoring is only limited to catch and shoot. And Josh Hart. Stop doing that. So I don't agree with none of this, and I hate it. I hate it for Tom Thibodeau. I absolutely hate it, and I hate Knicks fans for making this happen because I think the New York Knicks organization listen to their fan base.
I think so too.
But let's move on, Coach.
Let's wrap this thing up.
Let's get into the halftime predictions and wrap this show up.
Yes, sir.
Oh man. Oh man. Maybe it's just the coach in me that's really fired up about it and really upset about it. Cause I can understand all of the things that he was dealing with.
Of course. And that's something we'll discuss at another time. But for now, let's wrap this thing up. We know at time of recording, this is Wednesday, June 4th. We know the NBA Finals Game 1 plays tomorrow. We got OKC, Indiana. Real quick, Coach, one question for you. Who do you got in this series and how? I guess that's two questions. But
man, I'm going to say this. The betting favorite is to go with OKC.
Mm-hmm.
I really like this Indiana team.
Okay.
And I don't know if my heart just wants them to win more than I want OKC to win. And maybe that's the reason why I'm going to say this. But I got Indiana in 7.
Okay. All right.
And I got Indiana in 7. The way that I see it works is I think Indiana wins tomorrow, game 1. No, take that back. OKC win games 1. Indiana wins game 2. Indiana wins game 3. OKC comes back from 2-1 and wins game 4. They go home, win game 5. They up 3-2. Indiana comes back home, defends themselves at home, game 6. And they put it all on OKC at home. These young players, they backs get tight. Guys start shooting. Air balls start happening because they want to win at home. And somehow the veteran leadership of Rick Carlisle being a coach who's been there and done that before, Pascal Siakam been there, done that before, and a greater role than Alex Caruso. I think that helps Indiana and propels them to be able to pull out a close game 7 in OKC. The reason why I think this happens is I think Rick Carlisle is going to be smart, and I think he's going to make a very wise decision and not putting Nesmith on Shea and putting Nesmith on Jalen Williams. And the reason why is because you cannot stop Shea. You can't. So because you can't stop Shea, why waste your best defender on him? But what you can do is probably limit J. Will. And that's going to be the key to helping Indiana beat OKC. Don't worry about stopping Shea. You're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. It's been proven all throughout this playoffs that there is no answer for Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and that's why he's the MVP. But if you can slow down Jalen Williams and keep him from being as effective as that kind of Robin to Batman type of situation, and you force Chet to have to be more of a scorer and be more of an impact player than what he has been accustomed to, that is the best formula for Indiana to potentially win this series.
Yeah, I like that take. I think if Indiana wins game 1, I think that causes serious implications for OKC. And in that case, I think Indiana could go on and win the series in 6. But for me, it's too hard to go against the team that has proven themselves time and time again this whole season that they are just too good for anybody. I think across the board, it's going to be very tough for Indiana to match up with OKC. I'm intrigued to see what lineup OKC puts out there, if they're going to go with their double big lineup again of Hardenstein and Chet, or if they go a little bit smaller to match the speed that Indiana plays at. I think that's how Indiana wins this series, if they can continuously play in transition, because we know Oklahoma's half-court defense is ultimately the deciding factor and the reason why they get stops. They have the best half-court defense in the league, but we know Indiana is a very fast-paced team. Probably the best transition team in the league.
And that's how Denver was able to make it a series against OKC.
Because they played in transition.
They scored a lot in transition.
Exactly, and that's something Minnesota was unable to do. So I think that's what's going to make this series worth watching.
But who you got?
I got OKC in 5.
Ooh, a gentleman sweep.
Yeah,
huh?
simply because I just think it's going to be too hard for for Indiana to keep the scoring output going against a very well-disciplined Oklahoma City team.
Okay.
Yeah, but like I said, I honestly want Indiana in 6. That's what I want to happen. I think Oklahoma in 5.
But you got OKC in 5, and I got Indiana in 7.
Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty.
All right, Coach. What episode is this?
It's episode 36.
36. We're still going strong.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Still going strong like black coffee in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I want to remind everybody to, again, follow and subscribe to our YouTube at The Halftime Pod. We know that you guys are appreciating and enjoying a lot of our content. We see the conversations that you guys are having, the discourse that is going on in a lot of our reels and our shorts and our Instagram clips, and we appreciate all that. But we just want you to subscribe and click that bell so that way we can keep this going and keep giving you the content that you're loving. And then that way you can always know exactly what's happening. Also, we want you to follow us individually for anything that we have going on in our coaching lives, as well as being able to hear any of our individual takes that we might have on anything that's going on in the sports world. You can follow me, Coach Malcolm, at Coach M_got it, and you can follow Coach Conrad at Coach_KD41. We also want to remind the fans and the listeners that if you have any artwork or anything like that you want to send to us, please DM either me or Coach and just let us know, like, hey, I got this dope painting or dope drawing that I think will work really well for you guys. Set. We would love to be able to add any of our listeners' artwork to our set and shout you guys out and just show love where love is being shown to us. So again, that's following us on YouTube at The Halftime Pod and following me, Coach Malcolm, at Coach M_got it, and following Coach Conrad at Coach_KD41. Anything else you want to say to the people before we let them go?
Nah, man. Appreciate all the love on all the social platforms, and love being able to do this every week, and definitely look forward to continuing to do this for you guys. So,
all right, this has been episode 36 of the Halftime Podcast. You know it as the best sports coverage on all digital platforms, and as always, you know how we leave. It's C-Red and bear down, baby. Yeah.